Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Russ Jaffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content and hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The two-time defending national champions, the UConn Huskies, they need some more talented players to come into their program this offseason if they're going to have any shot to three-peat. The only team in college basketball history that has ever done that is the UCLA Bruins back when John Wooden was the head coach. But UConn, on their quest to possibly be the first team to three-peat since UCLA, they just got a big transfer portal addition and big man Tarris Reed Jr. from the Michigan Wolverines. I'm going to go over whether Tarris Reed is a good addition for UConn and how the UConn roster is stacking up for next season and whether they have any shot of being just as good as they've been the last couple years. Now, Dan Hurley, you know that he is all about bringing in the right players and the type of players that are going to help his team be the best possible team that they can be, because UConn hasn't had the most talented team in college basketball the last couple years. I'm not going to go out there and say they haven't had a lot of talent, but if you look at some of the other teams around college basketball, there definitely were some teams that have more talent than UConn. But it's about UConn having the right blend of players, the right mix of guys that all fit together on the floor. Every single player for UConn has had a purpose out there on the floor the last couple years, and that goes to show you that Dan Hurley, he knows what he's doing, and he's done a really good job as the head coach of UConn, putting together a great roster with all the players fitting together. And Tarris Reed Jr., he's got big shoes to fill for the UConn Huskies, because Donovan Clingan, he's going off to the NBA. The 7'2" center for UConn the past couple years, he has been a really good player for the Huskies. Even though he's not Zach Edey big, he's still a really huge guy, and that has helped be able to stop a lot of other opposing front courts in college basketball. And then when you also look at the fact that Adama Sanogo was on the team 2 years ago when they won the first national title, he was a really big player as well. Now UConn's front court, it might not be as good this next season, because if you look at the scholarship chart for UConn basketball, they have Samson Johnson on the roster, who played at the backup 5 position behind Donovan Clingan. He's a good player. He's an explosive athlete, and he should get better as a senior next season for UConn, as long as he doesn't enter the transfer portal. He definitely will be an impactful player for the Huskies, and maybe it could end up being the starting center, and Tarris Reed could come off the bench. But going off both of these players' stats, it's going to be very tough to replicate the type production that Adama Sanogo had and Donovan Clingan. Samson Johnson averaged under 10 points this past season, and so did Tarris Reed. He averaged 9 points per game and 7 boards with the Michigan Wolverines this past season. He ended up deciding to transfer because Juwan Howard ended up getting fired. So it was a great opportunity for UConn to pick him up. But if you look at his shooting percentages, he's only a 58% free throw shooter, which is kind of surprising that Dan Hurley would want to add Tarris Reed, because of the fact that UConn was one of the best free throw shooting teams in college basketball this past season. And now he's adding a center that's not a good free throw shooter. Plus, he only shot 52% from the field as well, which is kind of low for a 6'10" player. Usually you would like a guy like that to shoot around 60% from the field, but it is the Big Ten, and that maybe is what Dan Hurley's looking at, with Tarris Reed being from the Big Ten, and it's one of the most rugged conferences in all of college basketball when it comes to big men. You have to battle big guys game in and game out all the time, so maybe he believes that Tarris Reed will be able to continue to improve. And he only was a sophomore this past season, so he could have still some more improving to do, and he did shoot a couple of threes as well at Michigan this past season, even though that's not really a big part of his game, but it could be something that he could end up developing later on down the road. He's not a big block machine either. It's not like he's one of the best shot blockers in college basketball either, but he also is capable of being able to block shots as well. But is UConn looking like a team that is going to be able to three-peat? Because unfortunately, they are losing some talented players. Cam Spencer's gone. He was a one-year rental after he transferred in from Rutgers. It was his last season in college basketball. He had a great year. Definitely helped UConn be able to win a title. Then you're also losing Tristan Newton. He's out of eligibility as well. So UConn is going to have to replace those guys in the backcourt. Those are two really tough players to lose. I've already mentioned Donovan Clingan's gone. Stephon Castle is not declared for the draft yet, but he's probably going to be a lottery pick. So I really wouldn't see why he would come back unless he wants to try to be able to three-peat at UConn. But I don't know if he should return. I do think he should go off to the NBA. Alex Caravan's another guy that could flirt with the NBA draft because of the fact that he is a really good shooter and he improved as a sophomore. And sometimes it's best to go ahead and go off to the NBA while you're still a little bit on the younger side and the NBA is showing interest in you. But he also could stay and continue to improve and go to the NBA after his junior or senior season. But Alex Caravan and Stephon Castle are two names to watch for UConn on whether they come back to the Huskies or leave for the draft. And then some of these other guys like Solomon Ball, Jalen Stewart, they're younger guys that haven't gotten a lot of playing time yet, and I'm sure that they will be playing more for UConn next season. But if Stephon Castle does leave, UConn's going to have to up the ante in the backcourt, because if not, UConn will not be able to three-peat in college basketball and win another national title. I know Dan Hurley's been a mastermind. He's done a fantastic job with the Huskies the last couple of years, and a lot of people are saying that he's the best coach in college basketball right now, and that is definitely all very valid, and it has a lot of proof to possibly back that up. But UConn's roster is looking a little weak right now. It's going to be very tough to be able to recruit many more players in the high school ranks at this stage of the game. UConn is potentially looking at Liam McNeely, the former Indiana decommit. If UConn can land him, that would be huge, and UConn's got a lot of playing time to offer at the wing position, especially if Alex Caravan does leave for the NBA. But UConn's going to have to do some more work in the backcourt. But Tarris Reed, he's a good addition. I don't think it's a bad move by Dan Hurley to bring him in, but I do believe that UConn's front court's going to be weaker next year with Samson Johnson and Tarris Reed. It's not going to be a bad front court, and if they really have good players in the backcourt and wing positions, then your front court can be a little weak and you can still have a lot of success. But UConn's not going to have Donovan Clingan anymore. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. But Tarris Reed, he's upgrading his team in college basketball, because Michigan, they were one of the worst teams in college basketball last year in the Power 5. They were an abysmal team to watch, and Tarris Reed, he still has a lot of room to grow at shooting free throws, at blocking shots, and becoming a more efficient player overall from the floor. But if he could do those things, what better coach is there than Dan Hurley to be able to possibly coach that out of him on a team that usually all of the players fit together on their roster? It's going to be interesting to see if he ends up starting or whether it's Samson Johnson. But I do believe if UConn is going to be able to have any shot of being a national title contender next season, Dan Hurley's got a lot more work to do. But based off his track record the last couple of seasons, you would believe that he is going to be able to bring in some talented players. And Tarris Reed is a fairly solid start to UConn's transfer portal acquisitions this offseason. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below about Tarris Reed transferring to UConn, and whether you wish that UConn had brought in maybe a bit more of an impactful transfer center, or if you think Tarris Reed will be good enough for UConn next season, paired with Samson Johnson in the front court, and whether you believe that UConn has a lot more work to do in the transfer portal if UConn's going to be a national title contender again next season. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I'll see you next time.